Hello ratbags, it's Jade. Welcome to a Valheim news video today. Valheim is absolutely blowing up. 2 million people have now bought the copy of the game. It's just coming up to 2 weeks. It's an incredible achievement. I'm going to go over some of the stats and the milestones. Then we're going to talk about some of the biggest problems or issues that Valheim has right now. There is a tiny little bug that is wiping out certain people's worlds. So we've got some tips from the creator on how to avoid that. And then we maybe take a little peek into the future. What could potentially be coming with Valheim? Not just the roadmap, but taking a look at some of the areas that are unfinished in the game at the moment. And since you guys have been commenting so much, you must have missed the information I gave about whether or not Valheim's coming to console. We'll go over that and the potential for a port coming in the near future. So, for the best in survival games news, and when I really dig in a game, I will cover it massively more. I am going to be all over Valheim for the considerable future. Don't forget to like, make sure you're subscribed, let's go. So Valheim has dominated the charts this weekend, hitting 364,000 players at its peak. I've told you guys recently in other videos and on Twitter that it puts it way above other games in their launch windows. Ark managed a pretty big at the time, 80,000 players playing on its launch weekend. And that was the biggest survival game launch ever, beating DayZ, Rust and a whole host of others. They've managed to keep that kind of player base going for years now, and their biggest peak of players came obviously during the first lockdown last year, 157,000. Now when you compare that against Valheim, it's absolute peanuts. Their first weekend they hit 130,000, their second weekend 260, and given that it's half term in the UK, as well as obviously other stuff going on in the world, we could see them break their record that they broke already this weekend once more. Although it does look like it is dropping a little bit already. The lowest peak here is lower than it was at the weekend, which is quite normal. But yeah, we'll have to see. I'm pretty sure they probably will break their record again coming up in the weekend. Huge achievement, richly deserved. The game is amazing. Simply is one of the best survival games I've ever played. You can go and check out my review, and I've pretty much just done nothing but Valheim for the last week or so. But yeah, absolutely amazing. Check it out if you want to hear more of my thoughts. So 2 million players, a big post here from developers saying thank you. They've got plans coming and it looks like they're going to be sharing info on what they will be very soon. So there is a small bug that is maybe destroying people's worlds, according to Richard Svensson, the curator. He's done the usual and said you should make copies of your world somewhere else and you can find the saves in this file. But he's also said that one way to avoid it is using the exit method of Alt and F4. Apparently this is causing a lot of them problems and issues. Now there are lots of rumblings as well about the servers not working correctly. I had some issues with the servers showing up. But obviously unless you're renting your own server, it is peer-to-peer. So when your friends join you, they are just joining on your game, which is the server. And there has been some moments where there's been some pretty bad lag, but it's required a restart. If you do want your own Valheim server, there is a link in my comment section where you can go and check it out. And if you use my code, you can maybe get 10% off. Just make sure you use the link and my code in the same way. So anyway, I'm sure they're going to be fixing this in the next hotfix that will be upcoming. But as I would say, it's probably one of the best sort of launches I've ever seen. So many of these games launch with problems and issues, but it does seem like it's the real deal. Valheim just doesn't have the same sort of problem. Valheim's sitting on overwhelmingly positive review scores. 96% of its users rate this game as positive. That's a huge achievement. That's pointing out there alongside Subnautica and The Forest as some of the best survival games ever. I ended up going over these stats quite a bit, but I've just cut out a huge chunk of it. But I did almost forget to mention that they have broke into the top 10 of played games ever. It's not just a best played survival game anymore. Valheim is now one of the best games ever to appear on Steam in terms of how many people have played it. But what's coming up next for the game? Well, given that I've played a bit of it now more, I can understand what some of these updates might contain. But take everything I say with a pinch of salt. This is mostly me just surmising and using some background footage of some of the unfinished areas like the Mistlands. You can visit the Mistlands right now, but there's not much going on there. So unless you're really super anal and you don't want to see them unfinished areas right now because you feel it might spoil it for you, really not spoiling much, there just isn't much going on, then maybe end the video now. But otherwise, let's go through it. So the Hearth and Home update looks like it is going to be centered on more placeables, more decorative stuff. I'm hoping that a proper dice system. It would be really good if you can do more customizations. You know you can change the color of your shields, or the design of them at least anyway, and you can get some fancy little banners. But it would be nice if there was a more robust die system in the game. I don't think it's all going to be just cosmetics and consumables though. I think it will maybe have some interactions to do with the horde mode. Pretty much the enemies that attack your base, maybe some adjustments and some tweaks to that as well. And maybe an expansion on how you can place buildings, or possibly even a new build set or new pieces. I would assume though that a whole new tile set might come with a future update or as DLC, but it does look like they're going to be focusing on that kind of stuff in the first update. When's that going to happen? I still wouldn't expect it for a good few weeks. They'll be still looking at bug fixing, making sure things are optimized, and then maybe launching stuff, I would say around the end of March. Do bear in mind the team behind this are still massively small. As far as I'm aware, there's only still like 4 or 5 of them working on it. I am going to be doing a bit more research and talk to you about the success and where VALHEIM came from very soon. So definitely check that video out if you want more details about the developer. But yeah, that is just going to be what's going on, I think. A big update expected at some point at the end of March. Update 2 is Cult of the Wolf, so I'm guessing some new enemies. Where they live, not too sure. The swamp does look overloaded. The plains biome is pretty dangerous. But if you take away obviously the goblins and the mosquitoes, it's quite big expansive areas with not a lot going on. It could be possibly linked to that, maybe there'll be remnants of that. But I'm going to hazard a guess that they will be appearing as smaller little encampments. I actually think it's got something still to do with the mountains. But yeah, I'm expecting a new enemy and maybe a new boss fight. When you run around the mountain region, we do get the Fenris or Fenra sort of wolf or werewolf. He appears at night time, but at the moment you don't get anything for killing him. So my surmisation there is that they will be werewolf based, and that will be something that you'll have to do, is go and kill 2 or 3 of them to maybe get the heads to maybe take on a boss. Ships and the sea, obviously I'm hoping it's going to be more work added so we can customize the ships themselves and maybe add a little bit more choice. I've already said it, but I would love to see a canoe added, something that you can't take into the big deep seas, but it would get you around the coastline super quick and would be cheap and easy to make. Obviously having more stuff to do in the sea as well, like finding more wreckages, deep sea fishing, and obviously just more creatures to interact with and other stuff to do. A big problem suffered by Atlas was the boredom in between sailing to areas. As I said, half and home at March. Cult of the Wolf I reckon probably not until sort of June. I know that seems like a long way away. I expect smaller little updates in between all this, but I think they'll want to take their time with it now they've had such success. They don't want to piss off their community by rushing updates that are kind of broken. And then Ships in the Sea, I fully expect to maybe come out at some point in sort of August. Now you're wondering why I'm getting these dates. I kind of am pulling them out of my arse, but based on all the other games I've covered over the years, how they've worked and how much content they're able to put out, I think that's a fairly safe bet. If it's any earlier than that, I'll be super happy. I don't think the Mistlands biome is going to be actually ready for a good few months yet. Maybe not until August or September. Anyway, like I said, I could be completely wrong with all that, but that's just my surmisations based on the amount of people that are working on the game, and as I said, how much they want to get it right. Now the Mistlands themselves are in the game right now. You can go to them, but they're pretty barren as you can see. Just these huge massive trees with these cobwebs and spider webs and silk everywhere, and then these massive skulls. It does look like there's going to be some new resource called Ancient Root. At the moment you can't interact with it, you can't chop it down, you can't use a pickaxe for it. So I'm guessing that will activate possibly the next tile set. That's why I think we'll get a new tile set come in. And the Ancient Root would give you maybe ancient wood to go along with the ancient bark, and that's how you'll be able to possibly make some new sort of build sets. I hope so anyway. And then stuff that might be down the pipeline after that period, multiplayer interactions. So that could be anything from having more PvP stuff. It could be having stuff to do with giving more permissions to friends to interact with certain stuff. At the moment you can put a stone down that stops any players from interacting with your base, but maybe there'll be ways that you can effectively add them in better. Combat improvements, the defense with the shield and stuff is great. And yeah, it would be nice to see a little bit more variety in some of the animations from some of the weapons if I was being really super nitpicky. Moon phases looks like it's a big thing. I've already seen some grumblings and mumblings how they can affect taming. I think Firespark's done a video on that. I haven't actually watched it yet. But that could be interesting how that will go. Is it going to be just like Terraria with a blood moon every now and then? Instead of just getting a normal kind of horde, either the swamps or the tree beards, it could be something really substantially massive. So you'd have to get prepared for it each month. Tar pits, they're going to go in the Ashlands. Now you've seen the footage right now, very unfinished, but there is a resource that you can get here. I haven't killed the final boss yet. I'm guessing when I do, it might unlock some recipes that I can use some of the ore that you get from this place. But tar pits in this area as well. I'm guessing the tar will be used as some sort of adhesive for building pieces, or maybe base defense stuff. Vendor inventory expansion. I still haven't found a trader. I've played about 45 hours now and I haven't come across one. I'm going to probably just load up a different seed, find one on the internet that someone's found close by and go and see what I can actually buy from him. Svalthalfla Brigands, I've probably said that wrong. I really hope these are roving barns. Again, a little bit like the sort of horde mode, but every now and then while you're adventuring somewhere, you'll just suddenly have this little roving band of brigands come and attack you. I think that would mix up the gameplay as well, so it's not just always your base that gets attacked. And then more unique locations, hopefully tailoring and adding a little bit more to the biomes, so there's new stuff popping up here and there. Sandbox mode, which I kind of would love to see moved up a lot more. I think some of you guys would love there to be a creative mode already, so you could get your build on without relying on cheats or other software. And then Moonin, I'm guessing, is a relative of Hujin. It'd be amazing if it turned out to be a flying boss that we had to take out. Something that swoops around as you try and take it down, possibly in the deep north. That is probably the last biome I'm going to show you guys today a little bit. You can see it's pretty empty, there's not much going on at the moment, but it's so cool seeing these icebergs float up and down. And yes, apparently you can go off the edge of the world. So there we go, a lot of salt, not the horrible kind, but the grains of it. I.e., don't take what I'm saying to heart too much. I'm just literally trying to give you a little bit of opinion on what I like to see and what I think will happen. And then I guess just before I go, I've got to mention it again. I have covered this multiple times in different videos talking about when Valheim was coming and in my survival show that I used to do every week. But Valheim will possibly be coming to console, but I wouldn't expect it until next year. The devs have not ruled it out. They've mentioned it in their FAQs that it is something they're considering, but don't expect it anytime soon. With the timelines I've given you and the devs also acknowledging that they're probably going to be doing minor updates every 1 week or 2 weeks, I fully expect them really only to start looking at consoles towards the end of this year. It kind of sucks, but it's actually probably a good thing. Most console ports, including Ark and Conan, were rushed out for console just to get them some money. It wasn't done because they were so passionate about getting their console into other players' hands. It was usually about they needed the cash to help boost their PC development. But this isn't the case with Valheim. It's made so much money with such a small team, and even though they've got a publisher in Coffee Stain, the chances are they're going to have enough money to fund their project completely now and do the console ports themselves. If they do get the console ports done by someone else, I don't expect it to be a mess. They'll probably spend a fair decent amount of money on a really good one, and it won't be done though until the game maybe leaves closer towards early access end, and I reckon that will be in a year's time. I know that's bad news for console players. You want to get caught up in the hype, and we've seen that it can be successful like Ark when it did launch, but as I said, Ark was kind of rushed out and you guys had some horrendous times. That's when I started covering survival stuff, was with Ark's early access, and it was good, but it was also really bad. Valheim is a lot more polished, a lot more complete than any other survival game or early access game I've played already. So yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed, they may speed things up. But yeah, don't expect it until 2022. If you've got ideas or suggestions what you want to see in a game, or any problems that you're having at the moment, or what you're just really enjoying about it, let me know. My name is Jade. I'll see you right back for more Valheim proper update news very soon.